educated.
Wow.
We're gonna educate ourselves a bit more now. Let's get into our next debate. Should bobbies on the beat be big, strapping men? Not my words, the words of Nigel Farage, leader of the Reform Party. 0207 862 2222 is the number I want to hear from you on. Get your calls in now. Farage has called for coppers to be physically tougher. Have a look at this.
I think we should fear police, just like as kids we should be slightly respectful and maybe a touch fearful of school teachers when we're 11 years old or whatever. And I think that for people out looking for trouble, and if they see, you know, a couple of big strapping police officers, they'll think, well, you know what, this may not be quite such a good idea.
He doesn't actually say men there. That's interesting. Let's have a look at how physical requirements for police officers have changed over the years. Here we go. So, the height limit was scrapped in the 1990s, gradually through a number of different forces. For women, it was 162 centimetres. For men, 172 centimetres. And what have we got in place? Well, I tell you what we've got. We've got physical tests. Specifically, we've got what's called the bleep test. Have you guys ever done a bleep test?
In school,
That's
yeah.
it, the dreaded bleep test, where you shuttle between two positions and try and beat the bleep. 35 shuttles, and the speed goes from 7.9 kilometres per hour to 9.9 kilometres per hour. That's a healthy running speed and hard to beat. Add to that, on top, you have to have physical strength tests if the role is going to need it as well. So that could be carrying heavy loads, carrying weights as well. So height, not important, but the strapping bit, if you like, the strength, the physical ability, definitely a part of the requirement if you want to join the police. What do you think about this, Reem? Do you think... I mean, what he's suggesting is policing by fear. I thought the idea was that you police by consent, that the police are part of us. Shouldn't they look like us as well, all of us?
It's a bit of both, right? I mean, I've definitely seen lots of videos on social media of very small, young women, about 5'5", and they've been totally sort of elbowed in the face or looked after by these men who are criminals and nasty and horrible people. But, you know, I actually feel sorry for those young female police officers that are being put in that position. I wouldn't feel safe seeing two 5'5" young female police officers together patrolling the streets, because women just aren't as physically strong as men.
But strength isn't all of policing, is it? Let's say, God forbid, that you were the victim of a sexual assault. Would you then want a 6'5" man to come and talk to you about it? Or would you prefer someone that you can relate to easily, even if it is on that physical level?
Totally. But what we're talking about is police officers patrolling the streets, right? That's really what Nigel Farage was alluding to, people that we actually see on a day-to-day basis. You're absolutely right. I mean, if, God forbid, something like that happened, I would definitely be more comfortable speaking to a female police officer. But female police officers aren't just in the room sort of doing investigations and talking to victims. They are expected to be out on the streets and sometimes having to restrain really, really huge, very strong men who are dangerous. And unfortunately, look, this is just biology. Women are not as strong as men physically, and I think we have to be honest about that. Obviously, Farage didn't actually specifically reference the gender difference, but I do think it does make a difference, especially when we're thinking about what feels safe. And do I feel safe seeing two 5-foot women police officers patrolling the streets?
Farage
No.
did mention, though, didn't he, teachers? And I was looking back, you know, the teachers I was most scared of when I was a student, actually,
were women.
Were women, and they were smaller, right? Authority doesn't necessarily correlate with body size, OK? And I think, actually, a lot of female police officers and smaller male police officers would feel quite patronised by this, to say, you're not able to do your job and you're not able to command authority because you are shorter or you're slighter. That's not necessarily how it works. And there's an awful lot that comes from authority, not in, can I punch you in the face, but actually, do I have the law behind me? Do I know what I'm doing? And do I have a natural, innate authority? And I have seen, as a journalist, in the middle of riots, big, burly blokes, yes, with riot shields, and they play a very important role, of course they do. But you also need police officers on the front line who are actually maybe smaller, but are intelligent. They're smart in the way they use themselves.
OK, in fact, Farage didn't mention men specifically, but Reform MP Sarah Potchin did. Have a look.
Never feel comfortable actually seeing two female police officers together. I'd much rather see a great big strapping male police officer with a female, but female police officers are
don't
incredibly...
feel comfortable if there were two female trained police officers?
I think they look vulnerable, but that's just my opinion. All I'm saying is I think that we do need to be aware of our police being able to protect us. That's what they're there for. But there's 100% a place for women police officers. We need them to go out to certain, perhaps more sensitive situations where children are involved, situations where battered wives are involved or battered girlfriends, that type of thing. Of course, we need female police officers.
I completely agree with her. I think she's absolutely right. I mean, really, it's about what is appropriate. But if we're talking about physical violence on the streets, and that is often what police officers are used for, then you need to have
Be careful what you wish
man.
for. I mean, do we really want a bunch of steroidal gym bros as our police on the streets?
Well, at least they'd be able to arrest
power?
people. Can I just say, young people don't have any respect for the police. I'm in Gen Z, right? All of my friends will show me social media videos. Look at how funny this is. These stupid police officers, they can't even do anything. People don't respect the police force
because
anymore.
police
You're
are
mixing
short.
with the wrong people. Maybe I'm not being funny, but there are young people who will respect the police, and that's kind of sweeping generalisation takes away from people who may be young people who want to serve in the police. I want to take calls and see what you guys all think. Graham's in Perth. Graham, do policemen, and I'm going to say men, have to be big and strapping to be able to do the job properly?
No, I totally disagree. I've got 2 or 3 points. First, the public should never be scared or intimidated by the police. People should see the police as a friendly and somebody that's easy to talk to. We shouldn't be scared of them.
Does that mean you don't respect them, though, Graham? If you don't respect them, then they can't do the job effectively.
I don't think respect has got anything to do with size. I mean, what that respect MP said was totally patronising the female police officers. And I totally agree with Andy. I mean, I don't know any policeman personally, but I do have friends who know policemen, and they've said that most of the bulging, muscle tattooed the policemen Farage is on about have or are on steroids and get roid rage. I know this is anecdotal. Female police officers are often much better at talking to someone who is in distress or having or waving a knife about, as they are, I don't know, maybe it's sexist or a generalisation, but are often able to talk people down, where a big scary policeman would probably inflame the situation, as Farage is implying.
I think Graham's got a really good...
violent.
I think Graham's got a really good point there, Reem, that there are many ways to confront violence, and confronting violence with violence usually doesn't end very well. I remember, I mean, I'm going to take as my text here, Happy Valley. Sarah Lancashire's character there, the way that with a withering word she would diffuse a situation was so more effective than getting stuck in the majority of situations. That felt true, even though it's fiction.
And I think it's definitely true in some circumstances, and Graham's absolutely right. I mean, in certain cases, for example, if somebody's speeding or if somebody is in a particular situation, then absolutely a female police officer that's younger, that's maybe a little bit more, not as physically strong, might be more appropriate. That being said, crime in the UK is absolutely out of control. And we've got people walking around with machetes. You know, seriously, do we think a young female police officer is going to be able to restrain somebody like that? I completely understand. 90% of policing is community relationships and things like that. But when we're talking about the threat of physical violence, I wouldn't feel comfortable. It was just, I would feel sorry for a young, vulnerable police officer.
The huge upswing in crime is there's a lot of fraud out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of scams.
There's also a lot of people having their phones stolen.
Your size plays no part at all in trying to solve those crimes, does it?
What about the physical violence? Physical violence, absolutely, you need a strong male police officer to be able to constrain
Often if you're a bigger bloke,
people.
you can't run as fast, for instance. You just mentioned mobile phone theft. I'd much rather have, a woman police officer who can sprint or a shorter guy police officer who can sprint.
How is she going to be able to restrain
adding
them?
more testosterone and male muscle to violent criminals isn't necessarily the answer.
OK, let's take another call. Richard's in London. Richard, how do you like your policemen these days? Big and strapping, or small and mobile, low centre of gravity like Andy's talking about?
Yes, 100%. Good afternoon, Matt, and to your panel. I agree with what Reem is saying. I would like police officers to be strong men and also have some brain, like Inspector Barnaby, my favourite detective, of course, on TV. I would say that being a male police officer would be preferable because of the physical advantages that men have over women, which would be very useful in situations. Yeah.
Richard, I'm a man. I'd be useless. I'll be honest. I'm like thin as a twig. I'm pump water. I would be no good.
But you'd still be better than a female police officer.
Why? Why would
because
I be
you're
better?
because you're
I
stronger.
wouldn't be better than Sarah Lancashire.
Matt, you're probably not the one, Sarah, but you're probably stronger than 90% of women.
I doubt it.
That male strength is incredible in comparison to women, and that's just biological reality.
I would also say that men have higher bone density, greater muscle mass, and much better testosterone. And they have testosterone as well, which would make them better suited.
But they also, Richard, if I can come in here, they also, and I speak here as a guy, and you get that burst of testosterone, they're also less good at using discretion, I think it's fair to say, in potentially violent or dangerous situations, that maybe a woman police officer is more likely to be able to calm things down and make a rational decision rather than kind of get lumping in.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting to consider maybe the police are like a rugby team. You need your big ones.
You need both.
You need your small, fast ones. You need your intelligent ones. I'd like to think that there's place for all of every shape and size within the police force. Really interesting chat. Thank you for your call, Richard.